Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna. Here we are. Bhagavad-gita, here it is. That's our channel. Bhagavad-gita as it is. That's our book. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my name is Labanga Latika. We are reaching the very end of the 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga, which speaks specifically about that yoga system where the main focus is on meditation and inner realization, but which principles are useful in any aspect of yoga, really. And today we're reading text 44. We're still having Krishna's answers to Arjuna's doubt. Arjuna had this doubt. If somebody who was previously engaged in material endeavors gives them up in order to practice spiritual life, but then fails in his attempts, isn't he sort of lost? And Krishna is very strongly encouraging Arjuna. There's no loss. There's absolutely no loss. So text 44 we're reading today is a couple of verses into Krishna's reply, and you can go back to the previous parts, or you can refresh your memory by reading your very own Bhagavad-gita if you have one. Text 44, I read the Sanskrit. Purvabhyasena te naiva hriyate yavashopi saha digyasurapi yogasya shabda brahmati vartate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So here we are speaking of somebody who practiced yoga, who made some advancement, but didn't go all the way due to, weakness or other desires or some form of distraction. And then, no, the result is not that he's lost materially and spiritually. The result is actually that he or she gains both spiritually and materially. Because materially, when you do practice spiritual life, you're no longer dependent on the very specific karmic results. You will gain because you're on the good path. And spiritually, whatever advancement you've made, they remain with you, even if you are sidetracked. I like that word because we speak of fall downs, or we speak about illusion, and we speak about temptations. There are so many words. But somebody who has once become serious and sincere about spiritual realization, and then somehow something else comes up and is more shiny and more attractive, and you go there for a while, but when you actually had a spiritual sense of realization, you will come back to that. So here is that situation of the next birth of such a transcendentalist. Purport: advanced yogis are not very much attracted to the rituals of the scriptures, but they automatically become attracted to the yoga principles, which can elevate them to complete Krishna consciousness, the highest yoga perfection. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.33.7, such disregard of Vedic rituals by the advanced transcendentalists is explained as follows: Aho batasvacho pacho Togariyan Jadjiva Gre Vartatena Matubhyam Te Pustapaste Juhuvu Sashnorarya Brahmanuchurna Magrenanteyete. O my Lord, persons who chant the holy names of your Lordship are far, far advanced in spiritual life, even if born in families of dog-eaters. Such chanters have undoubtedly performed all kinds of austerities and sacrifices, bathed in all sacred places, and finished all scriptural studies. Yes, so this is to be understood on the background of Vedic Vedic scriptures, Vedic traditions, and Vedic rules and regulations. So in general, if you're not that yogi who gives up everything material and simply focus on your spiritual life, in your material life you want to regulate your life, both out of a healthy dose of sense of self-preservation. You don't want to fail, you don't want to lose this human form of life, but also out of a sense of respect and gratitude to your family, your forefathers, the demigods, because they've given you everything you have, this body, this Earth planet and all that comes with it, and ultimately out of love for the Supreme. But even when somebody is not acting on that pure level, there is still so many instructions in the Vedas how to stay safe, how to stay regulated, how to stay in the mode of goodness, or at least on the human platform of life. So that's one aspect. So therefore, those examples are often there. Somebody who has already taken to spiritual life, who has taken to Brahman realization or Krishna consciousness, are considered to have already done all the other ritualistic things, because they automatically have those results. So the problem is not to get free from bad karma or to gain a certain material level. The problem is to be able to, our desires are very much based on our identification. If I see myself as a human being, what I want to enjoy is, everybody eats. As a human being, I'm attracted to those foodstuffs that are palatable to the human setup of senses. Whereas, a dog will eat something different, a fish will eat something different, a tiger will eat something different, which is totally natural for them, but is not natural for me. So when I identify with this body, then I want to supply this body with the type of enjoyment that this body can relate to. But when I identify as a spirit soul, then that becomes not a very high priority in my life. I will still eat, and I will still eat human food. That will not change, but my motivation and my goal and my desires that come from me, and depending on how I look at myself, how I identify as me, that makes a difference on what my desires will be. So a spiritualist will actually be naturally drawn to spiritual life, and but a person who is not a spiritualist, which means quite many people in human society, won't have that strong focus. I mean, they are welcome to have it. It's not that we want to, stop anyone from taking to that spiritual path. But the point is more that those who don't, then the Vedas give them some structures where they will be more safe. But when you have come to the path of actual directly aiming for spiritual realization, then you don't need to pay so much attention. It's just like, I just pull these examples out of the air. I hope they will be somewhat useful in understanding the principle. Like when you start to learn to ride a bike, you might have those training wheels on, and they're very useful because they help you so you won't fall over the one direction or the other direction. But then when you actually know how to ride a bike, you remove the training wheels, because you find that balance. You have it because you know what you're doing on your bike. So these Vedic principles, they are a little bit like that. They are there to keep us from falling over in our life, and maybe falling down to lower species, or creating awful karma, or creating imbalance in society, not just for myself but for others. So you have those rules and regulations that keep you from falling over. But when you're situated in a spiritual consciousness, then they are not necessary. They are the details. When we're speaking, because we're the Hare Krishna, we have rules and regulations. We have the regulative principles of no meat eating, no meat, fish or eggs, no intoxication. It goes from the heavier drugs down to, alcohol, of course, coffee and cigarettes. We avoid all of those. And we will avoid those even when we're on the spiritual path. That's not the rules we give up. The rules that are given up are the little details that give us some balance, and that give us some material, fulfill our material desires. I just wanted to get back into that, because from a Western audience, these regulative principles, they are not something that comes so much up in our daily lives anyway. But that's why it's here in the Bhagavad-gita. The famous example of this was presented by Lord Chaitanya, who accepted Thakur Haridas as one of his most important disciples. Although Thakur Haridas happened to take his birth in a Muslim family, he was elevated to the post of Namacharya by Lord Chaitanya due to his rigidly attended principle of chanting 300,000 holy names of the Lord daily. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And because he chanted the holy name of the Lord constantly, it is understood that in his previous life he must have passed through all the ritualistic methods of the Vedas, known as Shabda Brahma. Unless therefore one is purified, one cannot take to the principles of Krishna consciousness or become engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Yes, so these are persons and stories that come from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Haridas Thakur, the very famous devotee, he was very humble. He didn't want to impose himself or presume something that wasn't, he came from a different birth. He wasn't invited into the big Hindu temples at that time. This is from Jagannath Puri. There is the Jagannath temple. We are still not invited if we are not from Indian birth, and even within Indian birth, if we are not from Hindu birth, we are not invited into the temple. On the other hand, Lord Jagannath, every year he comes out because he's not confined in the temple. He comes out and gives his darshan. He gives his he allows everyone to see him. But in the daily life, Haridas Thakur, he did not push himself and say, well, I'm as good as a Brahmana, I'm better than everyone else. No, he took to the chanting of Hare Krishna. But then Lord Chaitanya, who's actually Lord Krishna himself appearing on this earth, he would daily go there and visit him. So he didn't have to come to the temple. The Lord would come and see him instead. And the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, that is sufficient for all your purification, all your worship, all your activities. If you have that level of realization of faith and taste, then that is fine. We do have some more practices in our lives. We do go up in the morning, we sing certain prayers, we do worship the deities, we do a service of going out and trying to distribute Bhagavad-gita, which, this is a little bit in that line. I want to share Bhagavad-gita, and then I thought, let's try this medium. But if someone has that fixed realization, he will simply find Krishna in Krishna's holy name. And 300,000 names, many names. When we chant regularly, we have our japamala, our wooden beads, strung, 108 beads when we chant the mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, on each of these beads. And then 1 round, 2 rounds. Our as initiated members of the Hare Krishna movement, our vow is to chant at least 16 rounds, which will take something like 1.5 to 2 hours. But on special festivals or on special occasions, we may chant 64 rounds, and that would take between 6 and 8 hours, maybe a little longer. So that's physically possible to do, but if you don't have that level of taste for the holy name, that level of realization, which Lord Chaitanya explains comes when we have found a very humble and tolerant attitude towards our existence. Otherwise, we can't do that. Haridas Thakur, he chanted 3 times as much. 64 rounds is considered around 100,000 names, and he chanted 3 times as much. So that's all he ever did. And therefore, he was respected very much. Yes. So we are reading the Bhagavad-gita. We are having little short videos here, and we can try to understand the philosophy and the principles and try to apply them. But really, we also want to, develop that desire to go further, to read the Srimad Bhagavatam, to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to meet all these fantastic persons. But and of course, I hope you do that on the side. Visit some temple, buy the books, study on your own. But it's very important to understand this. This yoga, we are practicing Bhakti Yoga. This chapter is about Jnana Yoga. It is about changing our identification. stopping this identification with this physical body and gaining the identification, or rather waking up to who we really are. And that in that process, all of the other principles are very helpful. Regulate the mind, regulate the senses, practice yoga process, and so on. But the result is of a spiritual nature, and therefore the understanding of these verses is we don't need to go separately into worrying about our karma and our future as such, because whether we fully succeed or whether we're not really there, but we've started the path, at the time of death Krishna will personally make sure that we find a good situation to continue our life. And even in these verses, Krishna goes as far as to say, because sometimes we think like that, if we're too materially attached, if it's too difficult for us to take to Krishna consciousness, then maybe Krishna has to withdraw a little bit of our material facilities to kind of wake us up and help us to focus on the most important part. That's not what he says here, though. He doesn't say the yogi who falls down, I will give him a lot of suffering, so he realizes this material world is not a nice place. That is already there in this material world. We already have all the sufferings. Not all the time, of course, but we have at the very least, we have birth and death. Usually there is also disease and old age. That's a given. Anytime we have a body, that's a given. So Krishna doesn't have to particularly give us extra suffering. He's ensuring Arjuna, if you focus on your spiritual priorities, the rest, well, we'll have to deal with the rest. Maybe we have to take care of our education or our income, our family, so many things. Focus, the priority, should always be Krishna consciousness, because ultimately everything else is connected to Krishna, and ultimately that is our real and true nature. So that's what I wanted to say on this verse. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Of course, I want to say it also that if you look under the film, the clip here, you should find a little box with information, links for finding your own Bhagavad-gita, finding a Krishna temple to visit. And under there you have the comment field. And I would appreciate a little bit of back and forth if you have some questions, if you have some comments. If you're a real actual person, I will respond to them. I've had a kind of a bunch of hi, hello, love from accounts that don't really look real. So those, I remove them. So come up with a question and write to me. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare